Okay, so this is kind of a bit of a funny story, which has a bit of a morbid undertone to it, so I apologize for that. But about 12 years ago, I was in kind of an eerily close relationship with somebody who was like a political extremist of sorts, okay? I looked him up in recent years and found out that he's just been, probably peacefully living with his family and working for a certain company in a mid-ranking position, and I guess he kind of domesticated himself into family life, which is good. But I don't know, people like him have this tendency to not understand what makes them happy or unhappy, and yet they're making massive predictions about whether or not, like, a revolution on their preferred terms would give them high status and success and power and all that. So it's kind of funny how that works. It's typically, I think, the least self aware people who endorse massive societal changes rather than incremental small scale changes that can actually get them to level up in life, you know. Um, but that's just kind of a hand wavy, transient comment, and I don't mean to get too deep into the psychology of the low status extremist right now. But there was something that might have seemed like an unlikely influence that immunized me against succumbing to political extremism, and it was a video game, okay? So I know that there's this boomer attitude that, oh, video games are just for kids and you should be pursuing only physical fitness and making money and, betting women and seeking high status or something. But I like video games. I find that they deepen my interest in what human beings can experience. So the video game that was a major force in getting me to steer clear of really extreme political endorsements. And this isn't the only game that had this effect, but it was called This War of Mine. So if you haven't seen a full playthrough of this game, I'd recommend that you look it up sometime. I actually bought it and played it for a little while, maybe like 30 or 40 minutes, because I found it too depressing. But I realized that certain, we'll call them intelligent nut jobs, who were using social media were articulating all kinds of fine-pointed, long arguments about their specific political visions, and some of them did endorse bloody revolutions and stuff, although not always in legally incriminating terms. And yet, what they didn't realize is, like, if they really initiated something revolutionary in terms of, like, a domestic conflict, they wouldn't end up with, like, an endless utopia that centrally served the factions they belonged to, which were certainly partisan and not exactly welcomed with open arms on the global political stage. What's more likely to happen in the scenarios that these people craved was infighting and torrents and waves of domestic conflict that might have leaked out into other parts of the world, and eventually they would probably end up in like a level of This War of Mine, except it would be a real life scenario. You can plan to destroy political opponents as meticulously as you want, but that's not necessarily going to make you anything other than a pawn that takes out another pawn on the chessboard of the political game. So I don't claim deep erudition about history or politics now. I actually steer clear of most politically charged things most of the time for the sake of protecting my mental health. But yeah, if you haven't played This War of Mine, if you haven't seen a playthrough of it, if you haven't read essays about it, if you don't know how the game works and what the object of that game is, then I'd recommend that you look it up, especially if you have this contemptful attitude toward video games and you think they're never going to save the life of anyone other than some depressed loser or something. So I'm a millennial. I have a positive view of gaming, providing you know how to keep it in its place, like anything else that could plausibly be categorized as a vice. Okay, so that's one of those key influences in my life that seems to have been sent, for lack of a uh, different expression by God. So yeah, um, stay on the lookout for healing, uh, transformative influences that can be hiding in plain sight in your life, okay? Um, I couldn't end up as a pawn in somebody else's game back when I was talking to overly egotistical extremists because I knew what I centrally valued, which was sort of compassion. And you have to know what you're willing to absorb costs for and make sacrifices for before you interact with charismatic personalities. And on a concluding note, if you want a wonderful illustration of the dangers of charisma, then look up the movie Training Day, which includes Ethan Hawke and I think Denzel Washington. It's a wonderful movie, okay? If you can tolerate vulgarity and violence, it's definitely a badass take on, a badass illustration of the dangers of highly charismatic individuals. All right, thank you for watching and have a good day, and God bless you.